Welcome, everyone, to our live Omega session with Dr. Eric Laux. We're excited to have you all join us today. My name is Callie Alpert. I'm the Director of Digital Media here at Omega. And I know we have a mix of people here. I'd love to see more of your faces. If you're not feeling shy and you want to turn your cameras on, we'd love to see you. And if not, if you're more comfortable with them off, that's perfectly fine. But we love to always see everybody's smiling faces. So I know there's a mix of college professors, administrators, those of you who have already signed up for the self-paced course that Eric has created with us here at Omega, which is, by the way, entitled The Mindful College Student, Finding Your Path to a Thriving Life. And that is what we're going to be talking more about today. Eric's book, The Mindful College Student, How to Succeed, Boost Well-Being, and Build the Life You Want at University and Beyond, is now available at your favorite local or online bookstores. And I'm excited to tell you that Omega is also offering a giveaway of this book, the drawing of which will be on May 4th, when 5 lucky winners will be notified. And that link will be in the chat for you if you'd like to enter. So we want our hour together today to be very fluid and informal and give you plenty of time to interact with Eric. So he and I are going to talk for a bit to give you some insights into his thoughts about what most ails young adults in these times and how mindfulness practices can help. And then Eric is going to lead us in a 7 to 8 minute practice. And we will devote most of the second half of this session to any questions or comments you'd like to share, at which time you can do so via our chat box, or you can also raise your hands if you'd prefer to do that by just looking at the bottom of your Zoom screen where under reactions, you click on that button and you can raise your hand. We'll call on you and we'll bring you up on camera. So I hope that sounds good. So a brief introduction. Eric Laux is the Associate Professor of Epidemiology, Behavioral and Social Sciences, and Medicine, as well as Director of the Mindfulness Center at Brown University. Eric focuses his research on the impacts of mindfulness and early life adversity on adulthood well-being. And he has studied mindfulness meditation for over 2 decades and is certified as a mindfulness-based stress reduction instructor. He has over 100 peer-reviewed publications and has received wide coverage of his research findings in outlets such as the New York Times and BBC News. So I'm happy, Eric, to welcome you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Really nice to be here with all of you. I have so much respect for the Omega Institute and have met many wonderful people when I've been there. So nice to be connected with all of you in this online way today, too.
So let's start with just an overarching question, which is, what is mindfulness? And why is it so important as a coping tool for both younger people and older adults, especially in these times, the crazy times that we're living in right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Loaded question with what is mindfulness, because there's lots of answers to it. But, one of the most common answers to that is, John Kabat-Zinn's definition of mindfulness being paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. And I like that definition because it's brief and it still encompasses quite a bit. There's kind of two main components to mindfulness. One is the present moment awareness of our thoughts, emotions, physical sensations. So in many ways, the entire human experience is in one of those 3. It's either in our physical sensations, our emotions, or our thoughts. So it's present moment awareness of that. But the other piece of mindfulness is the quality of that awareness, that it's non-judgmental. There's curiosity, gentleness. I sometimes think of it as just sort of like an unbiased scientist seeing what's going on. And that's the data for our lives that's coming in through our senses and our thoughts and emotions. So can we just be aware of that and then harness it? And another piece about mindfulness that I really appreciate that a lot of scholars have been emphasizing in recent years, that's in the original translations from Pali and Sanskrit, is mindfulness has a component of remembering. And I used to think like, what do you mean remembering? Like that takes you out of the present moment into the past. But one way of thinking about it is it's remembering to bring our wisdom into this present moment. And that mindfulness is kind of like an arrow that's flying really fast, that it's very quickly bringing our wisdom into this moment. And I like how respectful that definition is of many wisdom traditions, or wherever we get wisdom, whether it's from our friends or our parents or from books. And so it's not trying to convert anyone to Buddhism or anything. It's just where is your wisdom? What is your wisdom? And how does it apply to this moment? And even inviting you, as you're here right now, joining us from all over the world, potentially, like, what is your wisdom sharing with you right now, and how you want to be during this live session?
Do you remember the first time that you became aware of your wisdom or the concept of mindfulness in your own life? Another loaded question, I know.
Yeah.
So fast.
I don't really remember like wisdom as such, but mindfulness, I think, was actually looking at the book right now. Well, one of them, but it was written by the Dalai Lama. And when I was a kid, my mom's second cousin had married a Tibetan who worked for the Dalai Lama. And so I became aware of who that was. And I resonated a lot with this Tibetan person who lived in my hometown and then moved to India to work with the Dalai Lama. So I started to learn about mindfulness through that angle. And but I think partly it was not so much the learning the word, but seeing it in action through this person, and knew there was just something to it that was healing for me too. It's kind of drawn me towards it for the rest of my life.
It's a nice high bar to establish in the family at an early age, the wisdom of the Dalai Lama, right? Yeah. No pressure at all. So let's talk a little bit about why especially your work around mindfulness in young adults, college-age kids. What do you consider to be like the 3 to 5 biggest ills that young adults are dealing with these days? There's such a long list. Can you prioritize the ones that you feel are the most concerning?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mortality's gone up 60% in young adults in the last 20 years. Most of that in the last 10 years before COVID. COVID increased it even further. So a lot of them are deaths, despair, or it's suicide or drug overdose or accidents, homicide. So just in terms of mortality, it's a very difficult time. When I interviewed young adults when I was writing the book, I interviewed a couple dozen, but I've also had hundreds go through my programs. Things that come up, one is economic stress, around tuition rates outpacing inflation for decades and housing prices outpacing inflation for decades. So they're stuck in a gig economy. Social media and just digital media as a whole, like pulling on attention. So there it is as a tool. It's a really useful tool. And it pulls on their attention in ways that bring them away from who they are, and how to manage that. Another one that came up pretty often was actually just sort of like a lack of a sense of meaning. One person sharing, it's like, the de-emphasis of religion in Western society, they kind of rug out from under us, where now we kind of don't have anything to replace it. And that they were finding mindfulness was helping to give meaning to their lives as well, and to give them an organizing structure through which to explore who they are and what's important to them, and then to act on it. That gave them more meaning. So those are some of the things that have come up as important.
It's also, how are we looking for meaning in society? Even that concept these days has gotten so diluted and sort of misplaced. Validation via how many people, followers you have on whatever social media platform, etc. It feels like it's even harder to figure out what it even, what those channels are, to figure out what your purpose and where meaning is.
Yeah.
Do you find that your students are talking about that as well?
Yeah, there's not a lot of money to be made off of finding meaning. And so much of our digital experience, or in our careers and stuff, seems to often be driven by, fiscal generation. So finding meanings is often a place that we would go to in our spiritual communities or with our close friends and family members, but just how important it is to carve out that time to have those deliberate conversations. And even, there's this saying, I think from the Buddha's time, I think one of his attendants, it might have been Ananda, who was maybe even a relative of his, he said to the Buddha once, he's like, feels like, spiritual friends are so important, like they're like half of the spiritual life. And the Buddha said, no, that's incorrect. They're the entirety of the spiritual life, and just how important community is. And then we had this like pesky pandemic happening. And so here we are online finding community and seeing how we can creatively do that to give meaning to our lives, and even respecting all of you here now, finding community in this way and meaning as well, because people are hungry for that. And, it's not as straightforward to come by now as maybe it once was.
I'm thinking of Megatrends 2000, I think, written in the late 80s. I think by John Nesbitt, I believe. I might be misremembering the name of the author, but there was a chapter like high tech, high touch, how the more we become progressive in the technological age, the more we're going to crave each other's human connection and touch. And it's quite a paradox. And it's exactly what you're describing. It's definitely something that's plaguing all of us. And yet technology has managed to help bring us back closer together on a lot of levels as well.
Yeah.
To that point, do you think, are there aspects as we get closer, because I want to definitely talk about a little bit more about the course and break down some of the modules and share some of the amazing information that you've put together in the framework of the course. Do you think that there's aspects of caring for young adults that we as a society, as educators, as parents, or the friends of young adults are missing? Things that are there pieces that we're just not getting that, in terms of needs of people in this age group, in this demographic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's, just even developmentally or anthropologically, emerging adulthood is sort of a newly defined stage of the life course. So up until maybe 40, 50 years ago, when people finished high school, they'd maybe go to college and pretty quickly, be getting married and having a family and starting their job. They're often in that job for a long period of time, maybe the whole career. And these career shifts happen, I think, on average about every 3 years. And then there's also more time carved out for young adults where they're delaying marriage, delaying childbirth, often spending more time in school. So that young adulthood, or what they call emerging adulthood, like age 18 to 29, is now a time for self-exploration and self-actualization. And sort of there's been a pretty big push to just be who you are, find your life's path, and you'll never work a day in your life, which I don't always know totally helps. I think it can kind of set up a certain idea that isn't always possible for everyone. There's a certain amount of privilege to that saying, and so I think in some ways we've served young adults really well by creating that opportunity for them to self-explore and to become even closer to who they really are. And it's not easy to do that kind of thing. And so we've seen anxiety rates going up for 30, 40 years, and lower physical activity for young adults than in the past, and higher rates of obesity, and higher rates of depression. So, are there ways? It's like this time where, in some ways, we want to carve out protected opportunities for them, and in some ways, we gotta get them out there and becoming growing up, and so. It's one of the reasons why I feel like mindfulness is a potentially really good framework for this phase in life. Is young adults are often moving away from home, not always, but often, and trying to become who they are, like, which is different from their parents, and trying to figure out who they want to be with romantically and what they want to do for a career. And so mindfulness can help with awareness of our thoughts, emotions, physical sensations, and our wisdom is there in terms of what really resonates for me. When I go take this class, or I try out this job, or I go on a date with this person, how do I feel? And if we can train ourselves to enhance our awareness of truly how we feel, and also to take a step back, it's called decentering, but we're taking a step back from our lives. Like, we train ourselves to do that. So what am I actually really good at? And whether it's learned or natural skills, what do I like to think about? And so I offer, there's a tool in my book around this too, but these questions of, what's really important for the world right now. And if we can find a sweet spot where we're doing what's really important for the world, we're taking advantage of our natural skills or our learned skills, we're doing something that we naturally like to think about a lot, and it's like a doable job, if there's a sweet spot there that can really help young adults like just age successfully. And so it's one of the reasons why I work with this age group, because it feels like they're really ripe to learn, and it can provide decades of benefits because they're still just getting going in life.
I'd love to talk a little bit more specifically about the course that you created, beautiful self-paced course that you created. And you set the framework for finding ways to understand all the unique challenges that kids of this age face. I say kids sounding like an old lady myself. And how mindfulness-based skills can mitigate stress, cultivate well-being, create a strong foundation for the future. So for everyone's edification who may not be familiar yet, the course is comprised of 10 modules, and very snackable, like extremely palatable, and kind of, I guess that's more of the trendy term, but very digestible modules that are often actionable. You have great practices, stories, and measurable opportunities for self-assessment. And may I add, a good dose of your dry wit is definitely infused in there as well. So I'd love to hear you talk about some of the areas, because we cover so much in terms of body, opening the body, movement, mindful eating, emotional awareness, loving kindness, mindful relationships. Are there some that stand out that you'd especially like to highlight right now?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's grounded in some of the randomized controlled trial work that we've done at Brown in young adults. And I tried to really think about how to create a program that was self-paced and digital. So a big piece of it is just, when we get started, is one is just kind of taking a step back and looking at society right now, how our genetics haven't changed, but a whole lot of other stuff has, whether it's obesity rates or eating a lot of processed foods or sedentary lives, or, depression rates going up, anxiety rates, stress in young adults has never been higher. And it's not a result of our genes, it's a result of our genes interacting with this environment. And what is the environment? And it's not really our fault if we're struggling with stuff, and we're in good company. I don't know anyone who doesn't struggle. And so part of it is just kind of taking a step back, looking at the society that we live in right now, and then also doing some benchmarking where we invite young adults or whoever's taking the course to use like validated measures of just where their health is at right now for some self-reflection, whether it's their diet or their sleep or their stress levels or their physical activity. And then they get a printout of that, and then they take it again at the end of the course, and they actually get to see if things changed, and give some self-reflection, sort of some biofeedback. And it's anchored a fair bit in this ancient sutra. It's called the Sutra of Breathing Awareness. It's also anchored in the four establishments of mindfulness, another ancient Buddhist training, coupled with the clinical trial work. But basically, those trainings start with the body. It's like the foundation for well-being, and we've seen good research showing that how we care for the body also affects our emotions, and vice versa. And so we start to connect in with the body with some specific meditation practices. A lot are grounded in mindfulness-based stress reduction, so that we're learning body scans and doing some yoga, for example. So we get to know our body and what it's sharing, and what messages are here, and then how to care for it. And there's low-hanging fruit on how to care for the body. And so we have modules on physical activity where we do some mindful physical activity, mindful eating, looking at diet, looking at, sleep and stuff. And so we kind of start off with building that foundation of the body, and even what we talk about, like opening the body, just connecting in with it. And is the body open in this moment? Like, does it feel like it's burning clean? Does it feel like it's free and fresh and has energy, And if not, why not? And we actually do meditations around looking deeply about, if the body isn't open, why is that? And once we understand the roots, often the wise, skillful next steps arise from there. And then we shift to opening the heart. So we connect in with the emotional tone, what feelings are here, and specific meditations around that, focus on loving kindness, and also just some skills around kind of healing and community. Thich Nhat Hanh offers a practice around that called beginning anew, and I'm actually ordained in the Vietnamese Zen tradition of Thich Nhat Hanh, and offer that practice. That can be just a really good skill for young adults, or really anyone of any age, to use when we have a challenge with someone. And I don't know anyone who doesn't have a challenge at some point with someone, usually many challenges with many people. And so there's techniques, mindfulness techniques, to work with challenging relationships. And that's actually a part in the course with Omega that I don't have in the book. So there's sort of there's unique pieces to the course that seem just particularly good to offer in a video kind of format. So the book the Omega course is focused quite a bit on opening the body and then opening the heart. So really working with our physical health and our emotional well-being, and then applying it to really practical scenarios, whether it's our career or our relationship with others, or our relationship with the physical environment, that kind of thing.
I have to say, having worked on it intimately in my team, having to help to produce it with you and put it together, and then reviewing it in anticipation of this conversation today, as much as you think you might have a little mindfulness in your life already, or you might have certain steps and practices, to really, it was really helpful even for me to be reminded, and also to hear it through your voice, a fresh voice. Was just really something that I found really, really helpful. So I offer that to everybody who's joining us here today. And it's pretty ageless. These are things that don't have to be relegated just to young adults, although certainly that's who we're focusing on.
Yeah. So, originally, I'd named the book Opening. And then when I was talking with the publisher, they're like, well, you've really got to find a target market, because there's lots of stuff in mindfulness. And all my clinical trial work was in young adults. And they're like, there's not a lot in young adults, and you really should do that. So my original design was actually for everyone. And because I've done so much work in young adults, and I feel like it's such an important time in life, and the publisher felt like that was important too, we have focused on young adults. But in many ways, this is timeless and ageless. So what's in it?
So would you like to lead us in a practice?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. And I'll kind of build on that, some of the themes that I've just been sharing. So maybe focus on the body, and so if you'd like to find a position that's comfortable for contemplative practice, it'll be a stationary practice. So if you'd like to be sitting, you could be lying down if you prefer, if that's best for your body and mind, but probably sitting or standing if you're comfortable with that. And so just finding a position that maximizes a couple different things. One is comfort, so that we're offering kindness to ourselves, but also alertness, so that we're fresh and engaged. And then if you like, allowing the eyes to close most of the way, if you're comfortable with that. And then the next invitation is to find your way to an object of meditation that is with you every moment of the day. And for many of us, it's encouraged for that object to be the breath. the in breath and the out breath. And the breath isn't a place of safety or comfort for everyone. For example, if some of us might have asthma, for example, and it's just not a place we want to focus on. If that's the case for you, it's okay. And inviting you to find a different anchor point that's with you every moment of the day. It could be a part of the body, like say the palms of the hands or the soles of the feet, where just there with the raw sensations of, say, temperature or touch or lack of touch. Or if the body isn't an ideal object of meditation, you could even select sound. Um, those basic elements of sound, like say the pitch or how loud or soft it is, or if it's rhythmic or arrhythmic. And so just inviting you to settle in on that anchor point or that object of meditation of the breath or a part of the body or sound. And whenever the mind wanders, which it may have already done, it's just what the mind does, and noticing where it went. And that's good self-awareness of who we are and how we are in this moment. And with gentleness and firmness, kindness, inviting the mind back to this moment, to this object of meditation. Perhaps the sensation of the breath, say at the tip of the nose or the mouth, or the sensation in that part of the body that you're focused in on. Maybe you have temperature or moisture, dryness, or that sense of sound or lack of sound. As thoughts arise, just seeing if we can notice what they are and let them go, kind of like letting white clouds float by in a clear blue sky. So, noticing thoughts, letting them go, coming back to this moment, to this breath, or this part of the body, or this sound. And then the next invitation, if you like, this is just an invitation, is to start to connect in with the body if you haven't already been. And perhaps starting in with bringing awareness to the parts of the body that are in contact with the surface that it's resting on, whether it's maybe the feet on the floor or the sit bones on the surface that you're sitting on. So now the object of meditation is the body and the parts of the body that are in contact with the surface that it's resting on. And then if you like, expanding out to encompass the body as a whole, and always respecting any limits you might have on that. If there's parts of the body that just are not a comfortable place to be with, it's fine. And you can always skip those, or just be with the parts that are a comfort to be with, or even returning back to your anchor point of the breath or a particular part of the body or sound. If you ever feel overwhelmed, always trusting your wisdom more than my voice. And it does feel comfortable to connect in with the sensations in the body, just starting to see what's present here. What is the body communicating with you right now? Is there comfort, discomfort? How's it feeling? And are there particular regions speaking more loudly than others? Just connecting in with the physical sensations right now, with the body and the messages it's sharing. Just noticing if the sensations in the body are steady or if they're shifting and changing moment to moment. And then even if you like, asking yourself, is the body open? And in other words, is it kind of burning clean? Is it feeling good? Is it feeling free? Is the body open? And if not, why not? So it's a chance to just connect in with the body, and always respecting our limits if it feels overwhelming to look at the root causes if there's discomfort. But we feel comfortable to look at if there's closures of the body, what might be there. Like this present moment is influenced by prior moments, including what we ate or what kind of physical activity we got or didn't get, or what we drank or smoked last night, or lots of things. And so is the body open? And if not, why not? Again, mindfulness practice is non-judgmental, curious, accepting, gentle. So offering those qualities as we connect in with the body and inquire if it's open, and if not, why not? And part of this kind of meditation is called insight practice. So you can even notice if any insights arise in terms of skillful next steps around our experience. That part of mindfulness of bringing wisdom into this present moment. So what is your wisdom sharing in this moment in terms of skillful next steps in response to how the body is feeling? Always offering lots of self-kindness, compassion, and then knowing that object of meditation we started with, that anchor point of the breath or part of the body or sound that's with us every moment of the day, even inviting you to find your way back to that anchor point now. As this meditation starts to come towards a close, just returning back home to this moment, back home to this breath. It's never been breathed before. Back home to this sensation in this part of the body, if that's your anchor point. It's never been sensed quite in this way before. we're back home to this sound that's never been sounded in quite this way before. And then as you're ready, if you like, starting to allow the eyes to begin to open. And if you need to stretch or feel good to move your body in any way, you're welcome to do that. And we'll start to return back to connecting in with Callie and community.
Thank you, Eric. I, for one, went very far away. Thank you for that. I'd love to hear from all our friends that are joining us today. If anybody would like to just even put a word in the chat about how they feel right now after that practice, we'd love to hear from you and get some interaction going. Just a single word. If you want to share something, feel free. If not, no pressure. Sometimes it's fun to just hear people's different experiences, different state of being, connected. Very nice. Sleepy, clear, peaceful, calm. All inside the universe of practice and meditating, right, Eric? Relaxed, serene, composed.
Yeah.
A nice varied array too. Yeah.
Yeah, the practices aren't really designed to be pleasant or unpleasant. So whatever your experience is welcomed. And as we get into this phase, part of these live sessions are for people who are maybe in the program right now that might have some questions and want to connect about some of their experiences, or anyone from anywhere. Part of really effective mindfulness training and learning is to have a teacher and to have some teachings and to have a community to practice with. And we're bringing all three of those together today. And so if you have any questions about your mindfulness experiences or practices, whether it's in the course or somewhere else, it's a time that we want to create a safe, courageous space where, we do keep what's shared here in confidence and ask for that. And to give you an opportunity, if you'd like, to share some of your experiences or to ask questions too.
So yeah, we'd love to open it up. If anybody has anything, we can continue the conversation. But we'd love to hear from you. If you want to put any questions in the chat for Eric, any concerns, any shares. And then if you're more comfortable and you'd like to come on camera, you're also welcome to go into the reactions, click on reactions at the bottom of your Zoom screen and raise your hand, and we'll bring you on camera and you can ask your question directly. I see a question here in the chat from Ashley. Do you have any suggestions on how to motivate students to take the course on their own, or could it be done in a group setting?
Yeah, great question. The ways I see are most motivating for people to learn mindfulness is when they get a little taste of it themselves, and then if it resonates with them. I think mindfulness training can be effective for a lot of people, and maybe not for everyone. So I kind of prefer the opt-in rather than the opt-out approach. So for people that it's a good fit, and sometimes it's getting those little teasers, or little tastes of it. And had a number of students. I taught this course at Brown called Social Determinants of Health, and we looked at impacts of racism and poverty and job strain, and had one module on mindfulness. And I've had a number of people dedicate their careers to mindfulness from going through that one hour lecture and personal experience. So that can be one way to do it, and to take the course on their own, or could it be done in a group setting? And the course is 10 weeks long, so it could be, we've had a number of counselors, for example, sign into our self-paced course. And so can it be scaffolding over 10 weeks of a term, for example, for the students to pick away at it one module a week, and then to come back in group or in community to say, well, what was present for you with those modules, and would you like to check in about it? We have a mindfulness-based college program at Brown. We have a mindfulness-based stress reduction teacher training program at Brown, and we'll probably be launching a mindfulness-based college teacher training program as well. So if you want to get trained up in, evidence-based mindfulness teacher training at Brown University, it's just brown.edu/mindfulness center if you want to learn more about that.
Eric, we have a question from Andrew. How to implement this state of being in regular life?
Yeah, it's a lot of people can get caught in like having some awakening experience, and then they try to get it back again, but life has moved on, and what got us to that awakening experience in the past may not do it again. And yet there are certain practices that can lead us to a more awakened life. And I remember talking with John Kabat-Zinn about it once, where he talked about mindfulness practice and meditation can lead us to being in this state of mind more frequently and for longer. We might not completely dwell in that space for the rest of our lives necessarily, but we can increase the frequency that it happens and the length. And so my feeling on it and what I see in research and in practice is practice. The brain is changing when we meditate, especially if we're meditating like in a high quality supported kind of way. And so, like, say when I do loving kindness meditation, and I think that's maybe week 8 on the Omega course, I'm activating those parts of the brain that are associated with kindness towards myself and towards others. And then I find it shows up in other parts of the day. It's like if I go to the gym and do like abs or biceps or whatever, those parts of my body get activated. Actually, the neural networks, there's strength that comes early on, even before the muscles have gotten stronger, just the neural networks get activated. And then that's there for us for the rest of the day or in the future. And it's similar with meditation. So I think that sort of like if we practice piano a lot, we'll get better. And then it's just kind of there for us when we need it. It does also seem like there are crystallized kind of awakenings that can happen for people, like moments that happen that they're forever different. And so, like with our mindfulness-based blood pressure reduction program, which is a program that I developed for people with hypertension, the amount that they practiced at home while the course was happening predicted their blood pressure 1 year later and 2 years later. The amount that they were practicing when we brought them in 1 year later didn't predict their blood pressure. We didn't expect that. And so what seemed to be happening is that there was some kind of crystallized shift that was happening for people that were really engaged during the program, that had a long arm effect, that just something just shifted for them, regardless of how much they practiced in the future. What they were putting into the program when it was happening made a lifelong difference. And so that's my feeling of like how to implement the state of being in regular life is, one is, to practice, daily if we can, or as much as feels healthy. 2 is to take really remarkable programs that can maybe make a lifelong shift. And I would say 3 is not to hang on too tightly to that state of being, because we can get caught. Sometimes they talk about mindfulness being a little like trying to catch a snake. And be careful about where we grab it. And so to not, be too attached to a particular state. And sometimes that attachment actually causes a closing that allows us not to get into that state. So if we can let go of attachment to trying to achieve some state, sometimes suddenly that state just arises naturally.
The paradox of when you start really feeling the benefits of these beautiful practices and then not trying to practice not being attached to aspiring to more of them.
Yeah.
Therein lies a big paradox, right? Question that I'm not sure if we're privy. It might be a little premature for us to answer this one, but I'd like to give it a go anyway. What has been the feedback of young people that have taken the course? Because it is a little early, but Eric, perhaps you know something that I'm not aware of in terms of people that have already jumped in.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think the course just got launched 3 or 4 weeks ago, so we're not getting too much feedback yet. I actually want to do a clinical trial on it. But I've had hundreds of people go through the Mindfulness-based college program that this is grounded in. And there's a paper on it that we published in the journal Psychosomatic Medicine in 2021. I'm the lead author on it. It's called Mindfulness-based College, and the title, I actually have 2 papers in that journal that year, but the Mindfulness-based College one. And so with that clinical trial, we showed significant improvements in overall well-being compared to the control group, but also in depressive symptoms, in sleep quality, and also in sedentary activity, and improvements in attention control and self-awareness. So that's what young adults, in terms of their health outcomes, are showing. In terms of like qualitative pieces, it's neat to see like the self-awareness coupled with the kind of like attention control, or like the self-efficacy, like actually not only becoming more aware, but taking action. Like there's this one student who went through the program, and she considered herself, on the introverted side of things. It was really important for her to get grounded and have quiet, deep time every day. And on the weekend, some of her friends were going out for like, they considered like a relatively big night, and involving restaurants and a house party and stuff. And she wanted to go, but her self-awareness was sharing with her that she wasn't ready. And her self-awareness also shared with her that when she did push through it in the past, it usually didn't go well. And she'd show up, but she wouldn't really be there for her friends, not necessarily having a good time, and she'd kind of regret it. And so as the dinner time came, she went for a run and did some meditation, but she wasn't ready. So when the dinner came, she declined and made herself, a healthy dinner and had some more contemplative time. And then her self-awareness shared with her that she was actually ready, so that she joined the party later on that evening and had like a really good time with friends and others that she met. And so those are some of the like things that we're seeing that you won't necessarily measure through a biomarker or like a validated questionnaire, but this sense of greater self-awareness, but then also greater ability to act on that awareness, even if it's socially challenging, but in ways that usually they feel better about, and actually their friends often respect them more for as well, because they're just, mindfulness is often thought of as just seeing the nature of reality clearly. So the nature of reality for her is that her mind and body weren't ready yet. And then they were, and she was fully present for that event when she was there, and she knew it. So it was really neat to hear. Some of her stories are actually in the book.
It's a cool anecdote. As I'm listening to you answer that question, I'm thinking about all the ways, immeasurable and measurable, that these types of programs, courses, readings, practices can help people, because everyone's going to land in a different place after having committed to whatever their version is of their practice or a course or whatever, right? It shows up in so many different ways for so many different types of people. Question: our lives are full of distractions. This can often be perceived as negative, but is it possible that distractions can sometimes be positive?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like with mindfulness and meditation, there can sometimes be this angle of like, we don't want the mind to wander ever. It should just be like laser focused the entire time. And I remember being at this conference and traveling to the airport with a researcher who studied the value of a wandering mind. And it was like a really interesting conversation where she's like, mind wandering, it leads to creativity and new experiences. And it can be really important. And so I find with mindfulness is, that self-awareness of the mind, having it focused when we want it to be focused on something. And sometimes a distraction can lead to something amazing. And can we bring our awareness to this present moment when we engage with that distraction to see how it's going? And is it building our life in some new direction we never could have imagined? And if it is, it's great. So sometimes I think we can be mindfully distracted too. So how does it feel? What's going on in the emotions, thoughts, physical sensations when we're engaging with this distraction?
Sharon asks, is the mindfulness-based program for hypertension that you mentioned earlier still available? And if so, where? I don't think that's the same link as what shows up in the chat is after that, I think.
Yeah.
Reference, right?
Yeah, it is published in PLOS One in 2019. I think there's another one in 2020. We're just writing up a big paper from a big NIH funded randomized controlled trial. So yeah, it's been in the research domain, and it's not currently available to the public. But I am working with a group to create something for the public based on it. We've run it through 2 clinical trials now, so it's been replicated. So I'm feeling pretty confident about disseminating it out more broadly. So stay tuned for that if you'd like. I'm on most social media platforms if you ever want to follow me or whatever, so you'd find out when it does get available. So I try to be as evidence informed as I can, and that one I think it is ready for the next phase of disseminating it more broadly. It's actually the next book I'm focused on.
Oh, I was going to ask you that earlier, just didn't get to that question because so much of your career is so evidence-based. Is there anything that's new or recent that you want to share in terms of evidence around the mindfulness practices and their success and efficacy that people should know?
Yeah, like my PhD is in pharmacology and therapeutics. So I got that level of training, testing out different pharmaceutical products to see if we could improve the recovery from a heart attack, basically. And I did a lot of dosing studies to find the optimal dose that's not too low, but also not too high for these medications. And in the mindfulness field, there's almost no dosing studies. Like really, possibly 0, maybe 1 or 2. So we just finished one on the mindfulness-based college program, and we're analyzing those data right now. So this is all preliminary, but we are seeing that the lower dose, which was 1.5 hours a week for 8 weeks, compared to 2.5 hours a week for 8 weeks, which is the standard dose. The lower dose was a little more popular. People were more likely to recommend it to their friends and family, so they liked it a little more than the 2.5 hour session once a week. But depression symptoms came down more in the higher dose, and so did stress. So that's one thing. I mean, again, this is preliminary, so we got to see, how the results all play out. But it was quite interesting to us. We weren't exactly sure, like we hypothesized the effects would be greater, but you don't know until we test it. So that's one thing that I'm excited about right now anyway, as the analyses are underway on it.
Ever so important. I'm glad
Yeah.
you're finding the support to do that.
Yeah, thanks. It's a lot of it is low budget. The National Institutes of Health do not, as a whole, prioritize young adult well-being unless it's very serious, like suicide, overdose, addiction, but overall well-being to support flourishing and setting people up for like a happy, healthy life for the rest of their lives. I submitted a couple of grants that got some of the worst reviews in my career. And they were really good grants. I just got an NIH grant today, like a $3 million NIH. Like I'm pretty good at getting grants. Young adulthood, it's not easy to find funding. Mostly it's been through donors, whose kids have had challenges and want to help the next generation. So we've been really grateful to some donors that have supported our clinical trial work, and Brown University that has also supported the work too.
Well, congratulations on your grant. So that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
In terms of, so we've got about 4 remaining minutes literally here. I want to point out to everybody that active in the chat right now, Kelly has entered the link for our the Mindful College student book giveaway. If any of you would love to enter, that drawing is going to happen on May 4th. There's going to be 5 lucky winners of Eric's new book. We've got time at least for probably one more question that I can squeeze in here. Aiden is asking if you can recommend any specific mindfulness techniques to limit rumination and overthinking.
Yeah. So with mindfulness meditation, researchers often clump it into 2 different categories. One is called focused attention. That's often like the meditation that we started with, where it's like just on that anchor point, like the breath or a part of the body or sound. So we have one anchor point and we're training ourselves to focus our attention on that. And then the other main category of mindfulness meditation, what's called open monitoring, which was more what we were doing towards the end of the meditation that I led, where we're just like, what is here? What messages are coming from the body or from the mind in this moment? And that leads to quite a bit of self-awareness. But if we want to focus on limiting rumination and overthinking, I'd recommend more time on the focused attention practice that's training ourselves to put our mind where we choose to put it. Recognizing they go hand in hand. So like with rumination, or like with mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, for example, they've found that one of the main ways it works is with what's called repetitive negative thinking, which is basically like rumination on negative stuff. So one piece is to, use our self-awareness of, I'm thinking right now. Even ask yourself, is it helpful? If it is, keep on thinking it. If it isn't, then bring the mind and the attention to somewhere that is maybe more helpful in this moment. But if you're training yourself in the attention control meditation, you'll actually be able to be more likely to move your attention away from that rumination. Another thing that Thich Nhat Hanh recommends when we have like a really strong emotion going on is to even just go for a walk, mindful walk, maybe bringing our attention actually down kind of lower in the body, like maybe just below the belly button kind of thing. So it's bringing kind of our focus away from the mind where it's maybe spinning to like the body, and then even just getting outside and going for a walk and just kind of break the cycle a little bit. So those are some of the practices I've personally benefited from in that regard, and seen in others that are decently evidence informed too.
Well, thank you for that. We're just about at time here to wrap up. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today and participating. This has been extremely enriching, and we're happy to see all of you from varied avenues being interested in Eric and our course. I want to remind everybody, if you'd like to check out more about the course or register, you can go on to our website, eomega.org. Under our online section, And then if you scroll down to on-demand offerings, that's where you'll find a big picture of Eric and a description of the course. Thank you all, everybody, for joining.